The park was the only place where Isabella Hart felt human. Not CEO, not billionaire, not the Iron Lady of corporate America. Just a mother. The late afternoon sun filtered softly through the tall maple trees as she sat on a polished wooden bench, watching children run across the grass. Laughter echoed through the air like music she had forgotten how to hear. Beside her sat her 8-year-old son, Oliver. Silent, still, distant. His small hands rested on his knees, his eyes fixed on the ground as if the world above it didn't exist. Oliver hadn't spoken a word in 3 years. Not since the accident. Doctors called it selective mutism triggered by trauma. Therapists promised progress. Specialists prescribed treatments. Isabella paid for the best of everything. But nothing changed. Money could buy companies. Money could buy influence. Money could buy silence. But it couldn't buy her son's voice back. She glanced at him gently. "Would you like to walk?" she asked softly. No response. Not even a blink. Her chest tightened, but she didn't show it. Isabella Hart never showed weakness. Not in boardrooms, not in interviews, not even in front of pain. She adjusted his jacket collar instead, pretending she had only meant to fix it. That's when she noticed them. Across the park, near the old swing set, stood a man and a little girl. They didn't look rich. They didn't look important. They didn't look like anything the business magazines would ever photograph. But they looked alive. The father crouched low, arms wide. "Come on, Captain, jump to Daddy." The girl squealed with laughter and leapt from the swing straight into his arms. He caught her easily, spinning her around until both of them collapsed into giggles. Oliver's eyes lifted, just slightly. Isabella froze. He was watching them, really watching. Her breath slowed. This was new. For months, Oliver barely reacted to anything. No cartoons, no music, no gifts, no vacations. But now his gaze followed the pair like they were the only moving things in the universe. The father didn't notice. He was too busy pretending to lose a tickle fight. "You win. Mercy, mercy." He laughed dramatically. The girl beamed like she had conquered the world. Oliver's fingers twitched. Isabella's heart skipped. It was tiny, almost invisible, but she saw it. Hope. She leaned slightly closer to him. "Do you like them?" she whispered. Silence. But his eyes didn't move away. Across the park, the man suddenly glanced up. Their eyes met. For a moment, Isabella expected recognition, the usual flicker people had when they realized who she was. But there was none. He simply smiled. Not the polite smile people gave billionaires. Not the nervous smile employees gave bosses. A real smile. Warm, casual, human. It startled her. He lifted his daughter and pointed gently toward Oliver. "Look, sweetheart," he said softly, not loud enough for the whole park to hear. "I think someone's watching your superhero moves." The girl waved enthusiastically. Oliver didn't wave back. But he didn't look away either. Isabella's throat tightened. Why was this stranger succeeding where the world's greatest specialists had failed? She studied him carefully now. Simple jeans, worn sneakers, plain t-shirt, single father, she guessed instantly. She had spent years analyzing people in seconds. It was a skill that built her empire. But this man confused her. Because there was something about him she couldn't calculate. "Peace." The girl tugged her father's sleeve. "Can I go say hi?" He hesitated, glancing toward Isabella for permission. No one asked Isabella Hart for permission. Except, he just had. Without fear, without pressure, without flattery, just respect. Slowly, she nodded. The girl skipped across the grass toward them like a bouncing ray of sunshine. Oliver stiffened slightly. Isabella prepared herself. Prepared for him to shut down. Prepared for him to look away. Prepared for the moment to shatter. The girl stopped a few steps away. She smiled brightly. "Hi, I'm Lucy." Silence. She tilted her head. "That's okay. You don't have to talk. Sometimes I don't talk when I'm sad either." Isabella's eyes widened. The words landed softly, but powerfully. Oliver blinked. Lucy crouched down to his level. "My daddy says quiet people hear things loud people miss." Isabella felt her heartbeat in her ears. Oliver slowly lifted his gaze, and looked directly at Lucy. The first time in weeks he had made eye contact with anyone. Lucy gasped happily. "See, you have explorer eyes." Behind her, the father stood watching, hands in pockets, saying nothing. He wasn't pushing. He wasn't interfering. He was just allowing. Allowing space. Allowing comfort. Allowing magic. Isabella stood up. She didn't know why. Maybe because something inside her, the part that had been frozen for 3 years, had just cracked open. She walked toward the man. You're very good with children, she said. He shrugged lightly. I'm just good with mine. She studied him more closely now. No arrogance. No curiosity about her status. No hidden agenda. Just honesty. I'm Daniel, he added, extending his hand. She hesitated. For the first time in years, Isabella's heart felt nervous shaking someone's hand. She took it. Isabella. He nodded once. Nice to meet you. No reaction. No recognition. Nothing. And strangely, she liked that. Behind them, Lucy sat cross-legged beside Oliver, pointing at clouds and describing shapes. That one's a dragon, that one's a pancake, that one's a sleepy potato. Oliver's lips parted slightly, not a smile, but close. Isabella's breath caught. She turned back to Daniel, her voice barely steady. What did you say to her before she came over?
Let's eat.
Daniel glanced at the children. I didn't, he said. I just told her to be kind. Silence fell between them, for the first time in 3 years. Isabella wondered if kindness, not money, not doctors, not power, was the one thing she had never tried. And she had no idea. This ordinary single father was about to change her entire life. The next afternoon, Isabella came back. She told herself it was for Oliver. Not for curiosity, not for answers, and definitely not for the man she couldn't stop thinking about. Yet here she was again, sitting on the same bench. Oliver beside her, waiting, she didn't even know for what. Minutes passed, children laughed, dogs barked, leaves rustled. Then, there's our explorer. Lucy's cheerful voice rang across the park. Oliver's head lifted instantly. Isabella's heart skipped. Daniel and Lucy walked toward them, sunlight glowing behind them like a quiet promise. Lucy carried something in her hands, a small paper pinwheel spinning in the breeze. She stopped in front of Oliver and held it out. For you. Oliver stared at it, didn't move, didn't blink. Isabella held her breath. Lucy didn't rush him. My daddy says gifts don't need thank yous. They just need smiles. Still nothing. Seconds passed. Then, very slowly, Oliver lifted his hand. He took the pinwheel. The plastic stick trembled slightly between his fingers as the wind spun the colored blades. Isabella's throat tightened. That was the first time he had accepted something from another child since the accident. She blinked rapidly, fighting tears she refused to let fall. Daniel noticed. He didn't stare, didn't comment, didn't pity. He simply spoke gently. Lucy, why don't we test if he's faster than you? Lucy gasped dramatically. A race? Daniel nodded seriously. To that tree, but only if he wants to. He crouched near Oliver, careful not to invade his space. You don't have to run, he said softly. Watching is also a win. Oliver's eyes shifted to him. Studying, measuring. Isabella saw it clearly. Oliver wasn't afraid of Daniel. He was curious. Lucy jogged to the starting line she imagined in the grass. I'm ready. Daniel looked at Oliver. No pressure, no expectations, just invitation. A breeze brushed through the park. The pinwheel spun faster. Oliver's fingers tightened around it. Then, he stood up. Isabella froze. Her mind went blank. Her son hadn't stood on his own in public for months. Lucy grinned. Okay, I'll go slow. Daniel raised his hand like a race referee. On your mark. Oliver leaned slightly forward. Get set. Isabella's pulse thundered. Go. Lucy ran. For a second, Oliver didn't move. Then, one step, another, and suddenly, he was running. Not fast, not steady, but running. Isabella covered her mouth as a silent sob escaped. She watched her son chase laughter across the grass like he was chasing life itself. When Lucy reached the tree, she turned dramatically and pretended to faint. Oh no, you beat me. Oliver stopped a few feet away from her. Breathing hard, eyes wide, alive, Lucy peeked with one eye. You're officially faster than a superhero. Oliver's lips twitched. This time, it was unmistakable. A smile, small, fragile, but real. Isabella couldn't hold back anymore. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Daniel stepped beside her quietly. He's brave, he said. Her voice trembled. He used to be. Daniel shook his head gently. No, he still is. Brave doesn't disappear. Sometimes it just hides. She looked at him. How do you know what to say? She whispered. He shrugged. Because I used to be the quiet kid too. That surprised her. You didn't talk until I was 9. Her eyes widened. What changed? Daniel watched Lucy and Oliver inspecting ants near the tree. Someone waited for me instead of trying to fix me. Silence. The words landed deeper than he probably realized. Isabella felt something shift inside her chest. All these years she had tried to fix Oliver. Doctors, therapy plans, schedules, programs. She had fought his silence like it was an enemy. But Daniel treated it like it was a language. She swallowed slowly. What do you do for a living? He smiled faintly. Used to be a teacher. Used to be. School closed. Budget cuts. He said it simply, without bitterness. Now I do remote tutoring and take care of Lucy. Isabella stared at him. A teacher. Not a therapist. Not a specialist. Not a world-famous expert. Just a father who understood quiet. Across the grass, Lucy suddenly shouted, "Mr.
Your crown is so
Explorer says the
pretty."
ant is
Thank you,
carrying
my
a
dear.
cookie
Our
crumb."
castle is growing.
Isabella's breath
Look, a new
stopped.
tower.
Her heart
Yay.
slammed. She turned sharply. What did she say? Daniel looked too. Lucy pointed proudly. He told me. The world went silent. Isabella's knees weakened. Her voice shook. Oliver spoke. Lucy nodded enthusiastically. He whispered. Time froze. Isabella stared at her son. Oliver, she whispered. He looked at her. For a moment she thought the spell might break. Thought he might close again. Disappear again. But instead, very softly, barely audible, Oliver said, "Aunt." The word was fragile, breath thin, almost imaginary, but it was real. Isabella dropped to her knees. Tears streamed freely now. 3 years. 3 years of silence, broken by a single word. And it hadn't been a doctor. Or a specialist. Or a $1 million treatment. It had been kindness. She looked up at Daniel, her voice shaking with disbelief. What did you do? He shook his head gently. I didn't do anything, he said. I just gave him space to be heard. Isabella realized something in that moment that no boardroom lesson had ever taught her. Power commands, money buys, but patience changes lives, and she had the strange, overwhelming feeling that meeting this ordinary single father was not an accident. Isabella didn't sleep that night. Not because of emails, not because of meetings, not because of billion-dollar decisions, but because of one tiny word. Aunt. She replayed it over and over in her mind like a miracle she was afraid might disappear if she blinked too long. For 3 years, silence had lived in her house like a ghost. And yesterday, her son had spoken, not to a doctor, not to her, not to a therapist, but to a little girl, in a park. And somehow, she knew the truth. It wasn't Lucy who caused it. It was Daniel. The next day, Isabella arrived earlier than usual. Oliver held the pinwheel again. This time he didn't stare at the ground. His eyes scanned the park, searching. Waiting. She noticed immediately. You're looking for them, she said softly. He didn't answer. But he didn't deny it either. Minutes later, Lucy's laughter echoed in the distance. Oliver turned instantly. There they were. Daniel and Lucy walked toward them, just like before. But today something was different. Daniel looked tired. Not sleepy tired. Life tired. There were faint shadows under his eyes. His shirt sleeve was slightly frayed. His shoes were more worn than she remembered. For the first time, Isabella noticed what she hadn't allowed herself to see before. He wasn't just simple. He was struggling. Lucy ran ahead. Explorer. Oliver didn't run this time. But he lifted his hand. A small, shy wave. Isabella's heart squeezed. Lucy gasped dramatically. Daddy. He waved. That means we're best friends now. It's official park law. Daniel smiled softly. Park law is very serious business. Lucy nodded solemnly. Extremely. She grabbed Oliver's hand gently. Come on. We're building a stick castle. Oliver glanced at Isabella. She nodded. He went. She watched him walk away with Lucy, something warm blooming in her chest that she hadn't felt in years. Hope. She turned to Daniel. I owe you a thank you, she said quietly. You don't owe me anything. My son spoke. He nodded once. He was ready. She studied him carefully. You really believe that? I know that, he replied. Kids don't heal when we push. They heal when they feel safe. She hesitated, then asked the question that had been sitting in her mind all night. Why are you really here every day? Daniel looked toward Lucy. For her, he said simply. That's not what I meant. He didn't answer right away. A breeze moved through the trees. Leaves whispered overhead. Finally he said quietly, she has a heart condition. Isabella's breath caught. She was born with it. Doctors say she'll need surgery within a year. Her chest tightened. Is she? She's okay now, he reassured gently. But I bring her here every day because she loves this park. Loves the trees. Loves the wind. Loves meeting people. He smiled faintly. She says the park feels like the world saying hello to her. Isabella swallowed hard. And the surgery? Expensive, he said simply. No complaint. No pity.
The system is
truth.
down. We need a manual
Something
override
twisted
now.
inside
How long
her.
until it
She had
cascades?
spent
10
more
minutes
on
max.
a
We
single
need to
business
isolate.
dinner than
Agreed.
what might
Let's
save
move.
Lucy's life. She looked at him carefully. Why didn't you tell me? Daniel blinked. Tell you what? That you need help. His expression stayed calm. Because I didn't come here for help. Silence. I came here for her childhood. That sentence hit Isabella harder than any speech she'd ever heard. Not success. Not survival. Not money. Childhood. Across the grass, Lucy laughed as Oliver handed her a crooked stick like it was treasure. Daniel spoke again, voice quiet. You know, most people look at me and see a man who failed. Isabella frowned slightly. Failed? I used to be a school principal, he said. Her eyes widened. I lost my job defending a student who couldn't pay tuition. Board didn't like that. Fired me. No bitterness. No anger. Just acceptance. But I didn't lose the important things, he added, watching Lucy. Her smile. Her trust. Her belief that the world is kind. Isabella felt something inside her break open. All her life she had been praised for winning. Winning deals. Winning negotiations. Winning markets. And yet, standing beside this man who had lost everything, she had never seen anyone who looked more victorious. The moment that changed everything. Lucy suddenly ran over. Daddy, Explorer says the castle needs a queen. Daniel chuckled. Does it now? She pointed at Isabella. Her. Isabella blinked. Me. Lucy nodded seriously. Every castle needs someone important. Daddy says important people protect others. The words hit deep. Important people protect others. Isabella slowly stood. She walked with Lucy and Oliver to the Crooked Stick Castle. Lucy placed a leaf crown on Isabella's head. There, she declared. Now your queen kindness. Oliver looked up at her. And quietly said, Queen. Isabella froze. Her knees nearly gave out. Her son had spoken again. Not fear, not pain, but play. Tears blurred her vision. She knelt in front of him, voice shaking. That's right, she whispered. Queen. She looked at Lucy, then at Daniel, and in that moment, she made a decision that would change all of their lives. 1 week later, the hospital director stood speechless. So, you're funding the entire pediatric wing? Isabella nodded calmly. Effective immediately. And the surgery for Lucy? Scheduled. And the scholarship fund you requested? For children who can't afford school, Isabella said. Name it after Daniel. Daniel stared at her. You didn't have to do this. She smiled gently. No, she said. I needed to. She looked at Oliver, who stood beside Lucy holding her hand. For the first time in years, my son feels safe in the world. She met Daniel's eyes. And that's worth more than everything I own. Daniel's voice softened. You didn't change because of me. She shook her head. No, she said quietly. I changed because you reminded me who I was before I became powerful. Final scene. Months later, Lucy ran across the same park grass after her successful surgery. Healthy, laughing, free. Oliver chased after her, talking, not loudly, not constantly, but enough. Enough to be heard. Isabella and Daniel sat on the bench watching them. No titles, no labels, no distance. Just two parents. Just two hearts that understood something the world often forgets. Success isn't measured by how many people know your name. It's measured by how many lives feel safer because you existed. The wind spun the old pinwheel again. And this time, Oliver laughed. The end.